Anyone involved in volunteering knows the importance of having good policies, but we also know that policy development takes time. And time is one thing that many volunteer-led groups do not have. It's a double-edged sword. It would be best if you had a policy, but you haven't the time to write one. So you turn to the internet to find an example to start with and become overwhelmed. You leave it and don't return. Sound familiar? If I told you by watching this short video, I will give you 3 policies that should be at least 80% fit for purpose for your group. That's a volunteer policy, a volunteer charter, and a conflict of interest policy that will take you less than 1 minute to personalise for your group. That said, the best policies are designed from the ground up by your group and for your group. What I'm giving you is a starting point, but it's a good starting point. The 3 documents are near clones of the ratified policies we use here at Tipperary Volunteer Centre. As we are a registered Irish charity and these documents meet our needs, hopefully they will form the basis of a good policy to suit yours. While we are starting with these 3 policies, we plan to expand these to the full bank for community groups in the coming weeks. If there is a policy you would like us to do next, leave it in a comment in the video description. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss a new policy as we publish them. So let's hop over to the computer where I'll show you how to get your policies. In the video description you'll see 5 links. One will be to a zip file, policies.zip. If you have the software that allows you to unzip files, that's the only file that you'll need. If you don't, just click and download the individual files that will there. You'll see 4 of them: a policy source, a conflict of interest sample, a volunteer charter, and a volunteer policy sample. Download them onto your computer, create a folder somewhere that you want, be it on your desktop or in your documents, and copy those 4 files into that folder. So what you're going to be left with is what I have on my screen here. You'll have 4 documents with the top one being _ policy source. The way I've set this up is that it works using standard functionality of Microsoft Office. So you might be used to mail merge, read mail, envelopes, labels, etc. You can also use that for documents. The policy source document that we have here contains all the information that will link back into the individual documents and create your policies for you. So let's just double click on that policy source document to open up and have a look at it. So when it opens, the first thing you're going to notice is that there are 3 tabs on the bottom. Each of those will represent a specific policy. So the conflict of interest, the volunteer charter, and the volunteer policy. I've also put little notes. If you hover over any of the columns, you'll see what should go into that cell underneath it that will link back into your policy document. In this case, it'll link back into the conflict of interest policy because we're on that tab. So let's fill it out using a fictitious organization called Tipperary Swap Shop, for example. The policy owner will be the person in your organization that's responsible for that policy. So it'll be Mary McDermott in this case. The register of interest is the name of the document that you will hold as your register of interest. So I'd recommend leaving it just as register of interest. And then the owner of that document will go in the next column E, which will be who's responsible for updating that register of interest document. The date then that was last updated, so we know how current it is. And then we have the policy, like what date it was adopted. I know because this is a brand new document that you're only seeing for the first time now, that the effective date, next revision date, and a lot of this, you won't have that information to hand. But when you do, just update it. And then the next revision date will be the date that you're going to revise it again at your next meeting or board meeting. So that's the conflict of interest policy. For the volunteer charter, exact same thing. What we'll do is we'll fill that out again and we'll just speed up the process so you can see it. And then we'll come into the volunteer policy. And in the volunteer policy, exact same. We'll put in the organization name, the policy owner, the volunteer manager title. And this will be the manager, the title of the person who will be kind of basically responsible for that volunteer in your organization. So it could be volunteer manager, it could be chairperson or whatever. The volunteer manager's name, the volunteer buddy title. So buddy is probably the best one to use. The volunteer buddy's name. And then the frequency of the support session. So how often is the organization committing to the volunteer manager, the person responsible for that volunteer, sitting down with the volunteer to have a chat with them to see how their volunteer experience is going at the organization. And then we have the other ones that we have the effective date, the next revision date. And if you're using your local volunteer centre, type in the name of the local volunteer centre here just to link back into your document. In this case, it's just Tipperary Volunteer Centre. And that's it. You file and you save it down, and that's our policy source all taken care of. To update the individual documents, then all you do is double click on the document you want to update. In this case, it's volunteer policy. And you can see we're getting an error. It's looking for the volunteer policy source, which is in that policy_policy source document. So what we're going to do now is click yes to try and find it. We're going to negotiate or navigate to the folder that has our policy source and click on it. And if prompted again, make sure that you're on the correct tab for the correct policy. In this case, it didn't ask us to do that. And you can see we have our Tipperary Swap Shop volunteer policy done, with our Tipperary Swap Shop. And all the fields that we've updated in the original spreadsheet have been copied across. Let's have a look at the next one, the volunteer charter. Same thing, we open it up, we get the error looking for it, we find the source. Sometimes you might have to enable content up there just to get it done. And there we have our Tipperary Swap Shop one. And then the final one, which is the conflict of interest policy, we'll have a look at that. Now, here's what, I've hinted at last time. If sometimes you click yes and it won't find a data source, so come in and click find data source, navigate to that folder, click it, and here, because we're in the conflict of interest policy, we need to ensure that we're on the conflict of interest tab, which is highlighted here at the top. And we just click OK, and that'll pull that in, and now we have our conflict of interest policy done. What you can do then is just come up and go File, Save as PDF, and create a PDF. And there you have it. You have your full document created as a PDF by just updating our spreadsheet on the policy source and opening the relevant document that's aligned to that, to the policy source that you want to open. Simple. We have our 3 documents here now, and as I said, over the coming weeks, what we'll do is we'll add more documents. So hopefully you found this interesting. If you did, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because you'll be made aware of all the other documents as we update them in policies. Thank you.